Boyfriends, we're going to skip over that and we're going to get right to where did you meet your first husband?
My first husband. I'm glad. It's interesting you said first husband. He's my only husband so far. I tell him sometimes, yeah, you're my first husband. But anyway, we met in Chicago. It was a blind date. Actually, somebody set us up. Yeah.
That's marvelous. So, what was the give us a little bit of an intro on how your date was going and what mood you were in and where you were sitting and how the light cast.
Well, the backstory, I'm sure there's a couple different stories. He might give a different story on this, but the real story was, it was a girl I worked with in Chicago. I was in banking, and she came in the office one day and she asked the question, "Julie, do you have a boyfriend?" And I was saved at this point, loved Jesus, and just had checked out on the boyfriend scene. I had a few heartbreaks. And I said, "No, I'm not interested." And she said, "Well, there's this guy I want you to meet. I think you guys would be great. You're tall, he's tall." And so I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll go out with you guys." And so she and her husband had planned a bowling date. And but when it came time for the date, something came up. I had a little situation going on with a friend of mine, and I just stood them up. So that's how the first date went. I stood them up. But I think that was helpful because it humbled my husband a little bit, It's like, wait a minute, she stood me up? Just to let him know I wasn't thirsty. Because there are a lot of thirsty people out there. But that gave us an opportunity to talk on the phone, and we ended up chatting on the phone and chatting it up. And so the second date went a little better.
So was he who he is now then?
What do you mean?
As far as, so educational, was he actually in school or was he finished school or, where was he in his life at that time?
He was in med school. He was in med school. So we met when he was just toward the end of his med school. And I think that's part of why, he had a little bit of air about him. "Oh, doesn't she know I'm going to be a doctor? How could she stand me up?" But, that didn't matter to me. That didn't impress me.
So what did impress you? Because something did. Because he got that ring on your finger and he got you to say, "I do."
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. You know what's so interesting is, my 20-something-year-old self versus my 50-something-year-old self. The thing that impressed me was his intellect. We were able to have conversations about all kinds of things. I'd say to him, I said, "The reason why you like me is because you knew that I knew who Patrice Lumumba was, who was the first president of the Congo, where he's originally from. And I knew the story of how President Eisenhower had called for his assassination, and John F. Kennedy actually executed it along with the British, not the British, but the Belgian intelligence." And so all of this stuff is, again, it came from reading about, geopolitics and, all that kind of thing at a young age. And so it was the intellectual rigor. I think all the other guys I had dated, they would listen to my little stories, but he could at least talk back.